in the US has granted accelerated approval for Alzheimer's drug Aduhelm. It's the first new treatment for the disease in almost 2 decades. Alzheimer's is a debilitating disease affecting almost 6.2 million Americans. We'll get you more on that shortly, but first, let's take a look at the top headlines. The Biden administration turns its attention towards supply chains, focusing on diversifying mineral supplies away from adversarial nations in a move to counter China. A joint operation against organised crime. Police from Europe, the US and Australia led to the arrest of more than 800 people and the confiscation of drugs, guns, luxury vehicles and more than $48 million in cash and cryptocurrency. Israel's parliament will vote on the formation of a new government on Sunday, June the 13th. If the 8-party alliance, the Change Bloc, wins the vote, it will mark the end of Israel's longest-serving Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's 12-year tenure. Amid concerns over the rise in new coronavirus cases, the British government is urging people to stay home this summer. Britain's Environment Secretary asks people to visit the fabulous places in the country itself. After more than 2 months, India reports fewer than 100,000 daily cases of COVID-19, with more than 86,000 new infections in 24 hours. Yesterday, Prime Minister Modi announced India's new vaccine policy, urging people to give up vaccine skepticism. The websites of the White House, the British government and many international media houses, including BBC News, the Financial Times, The Guardian and the New York Times, have been hit by outages. And we begin this edition of Live Broadcast with the latest from the United States, where President Joe Biden, who despite characterizing his agenda as anti-Trump, is extending the former president's America First policies, especially in the world of commerce. The Biden administration has now completed a 100-day review of supply chains in America. The key findings addresses the disruption caused by the pandemic and swift actions planned to strengthen critical supply chains. President Biden aims to increase domestic manufacturing and reduce dependency on geopolitical competitors like China. In February this year, Joe Biden signed an executive order to assess the vulnerabilities of U.S. supply chains. 100 days later, the administration is announcing the formation of a task force and a number of steps to bolster them. The review report has identified 4 critical products: medicines and pharmaceutical ingredients, critical minerals and materials, semiconductors, and large-capacity batteries. Based on the review, the Biden administration has announced plans to address weak links in America's supply and demand market to support the domestic production of critical medicines. The Department of Health and Human Services will now allot around $60 million to ramping up drug manufacturing. The Energy Department will commit roughly $17 billion to develop advanced battery supply in the country. The Commerce Department is planning to increase cooperation and investments within the semiconductor industry, and the Labour Department will announce 100 million grants to state-led programs. And finally, the Biden administration will work to identify new domestic sites where critical minerals can be mined with environmental safeguards. Congress will be asked to increase funding for a mapping program at the U.S. Geological Survey. This will be a top focus of President Biden's trip to Europe later this week. The White House aims to diversify suppliers and make the U.S. more reliant on allies and less on geopolitical competitors. The United States has approved a drug called Aduhelm to treat patients with Alzheimer's disease. It's the first new medicine against the disease in almost 2 decades. It's also the first to deal with cognitive decline linked to the condition. Aduhelm, which is administered intravenously, was tested in 2 late-stage human trials known as Phase 3 trials. It showed a reduction in cognitive decline in one, but not in the other. But in all studies, it convincingly showed a reduction in the buildup of a protein called beta amyloid in the brain tissue of Alzheimer's patients. One theory holds that Alzheimer's disease comes from an excessive accumulation of these proteins. The decision was highly anticipated, but a contentious one, because an independent expert panel convened by the Food and Drug Administration found insufficient evidence that Aduhelm is beneficial. The panel recommended against its approval. The decision comes under the FDA's accelerated approval pathway, which means that the body recognises that the medicine may prove beneficial, but there is still some uncertainty. Biogen has developed the drug with Japan's Eisai company. Biogen says that the drug will be priced at approximately $56,000 for a year of treatment. The Alzheimer's Association in the US is welcoming the move.
The Alzheimer's Association has been waiting decades for this. This is such an historic moment and a huge victory for people all over the world suffering with Alzheimer's and their families.
The last Alzheimer's drug to be approved was back in 2003. All previous medicines have targeted symptoms associated with the disease, but not its underlying cause. Alzheimer's usually starts to set in after the age of 65. More than 50 million people around the world are affected. It causes dementia, mood swings, and trouble communicating. Now, to the issue of COVID-19's origins last year. Several early reports proposed that a possible lab leak was responsible for the virus. Initially, these reports were looked at with great suspicion and often summarily dismissed as hate-fueled conspiracy theories. But a 2020 study conducted by the Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory in California did not rule out the idea that the virus originated in a Wuhan laboratory. The study has gained renewed interest in the US Congress, especially after President Biden called for a fresh investigation into the origins of COVID-19 just last month. The study was conducted by the Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory in California and was prepared in May of 2020. It was referenced by the US State Department when it conducted an inquiry into the pandemic's origins during the final months of the Trump administration. This was first reported by the Wall Street Journal, citing people familiar with the classified document. A person who read the report by the Lawrence Livermore Laboratory said that it made a strong case for further investigation into the possibility that the virus emerged from a lab. The study also had a major influence on the State Department's own probe into the origins of COVID-19. The State Department had also listed a series of circumstantial reasons which support the idea that the virus may have originated in a lab. This included a still classified US intelligence report that reportedly alleged that 3 researchers at China's Wuhan Institute of Virology became so ill in November of 2019 that they sought hospital care. Their symptoms were like those of COVID-19 or the flu. As many parts of the world continue to reel from the coronavirus, the US has accused China of blocking access to information and a lack of transparency on the virus's origins, a charge Beijing continues to deny. Meanwhile, a top World Health Organization official said that the WHO cannot compel China to provide more data on COVID-19's origins, while adding that it will propose studies needed to take people's understanding of where the virus emerged from to the next level. Pfizer vaccine trials on children aged between 5 and 11 are underway in the United States. The children underwent temperature and blood pressure checks before the trials began. They were then either given the vaccine or a placebo. Families won't know for 6 months whether their children actually received the Pfizer jab. Parents of the participants said they volunteered their children for the trial because they found the vaccine to be safe.
Between the adult version of it and me and my wife both getting vaccinated and then seeing the results of the older children, I really didn't have many concerns. I feel like so far, particularly with the Pfizer one, I've been very comfortable with it from the very beginning. There's been minimal side effects from my understanding, so I was very prepared to have them participate with as little concern as possible.
Kids who participated in the trial said that they want to be able to meet their friends and attend school without masks and social distancing. Trials are being held in various US states, including Georgia and South Carolina.
No, this one.
No. I know. That's why I've been trying to try to do all this stuff so I can see my friends more, because I really want to see my friends more.
Earlier, the United States became the world's first country to approve vaccines for adolescents. The Pfizer vaccine is being administered to teens aged between 12 and 16. Many students in the United States have been forced to take up odd jobs to support their families amid the pandemic, all while trying to balance their academics. Here's a special report.
When his father lost his job last year, 16-year-old Togi wasted little time before looking for a job to support his family. He got one at a fast food restaurant. Since then, he has been juggling the job while attending school online. Describing the long days spent between school and work, Togi says there is little time for him to socialize with friends.
I've been working a lot recently because of, especially because of the pandemic, because my dad lost his job like around a year ago, but he's been doing some types of odd jobs and stuff like that, like with like food delivery, like Uber Eats and stuff like that, to try to keep up. But I don't know, it's kind of a struggle balancing both homework, schoolwork, and also my friends.
The economic and health crisis is forcing teenagers to take on odd jobs while trying to keep up with the demands of virtual schooling. Educators are afraid that many students may not return to classrooms when in-person learning resumes. Some students have simply been unable to avoid working after parents or caregivers lost work due to the virus. There are no official statistics for how many students may end up leaving school to work, but the number of high school students working has increased dramatically during the pandemic. The working hours of those already working increased marginally.
Students have a lot of responsibility, and I think that that's only increased during the pandemic. A lot of them have been working to help support their family and just to have added income during the pandemic. A lot of people lost hours or lost their job, so students have stepped up to really help support their family.
Despite his hectic schedule and all the challenges, Togi is committed to finishing his studies. He says working at the job has really taught him the importance of staying in school.
A strategy that I used was I would go in the morning to all my online course pages and see what exactly we were doing today, and then I would plan and try to finish everything during the school day. So after the school day, I wouldn't have to worry about anything as much, because last year, I feel like years prior, I would just put things off. I would always say, I'm going to do it later. But I think this year, I got better at organizing my time.
Bureau Report, WION World is One.
As India witnesses a significant fall in the number of daily COVID-19 cases reported, the mutating coronavirus could create another challenge for the country. The National Institute of Virology in India has detected a new COVID variant, which is likely, they say, to cause severe symptoms. Here's a report.
India has battled a devastating second coronavirus wave. After a surge for more than 60 days, on June 7th, India reported less than 100,000 daily COVID cases. But is it too soon to say that India's second wave is nearing its end? The National Institute of Virology in Maharashtra's Pune has detected a new COVID variant, the B11282. The new variant has been detected through genome sequencing of samples from international travelers from the United Kingdom and Brazil. The NIV report has been published by BioRxiv, and the findings raise an alarm. Reports say that the new variant is likely to cause severe symptoms, including body weight loss, viral replication in the respiratory tract, lung lesions, and cause severe lung pathology. Identification of this new strain could put the efficacy of vaccines to test. In an uncorrected manuscript of a separate study by NIV, 2 doses of Covaxin have shown neutralizing efficacy against the variant, along with significant boost in antibodies. The World Health Organization had termed the B1617 variant as a variant of concern. Now termed as the Delta variant, this variant was first detected in India. The study of the new variant stresses on the necessity of genome surveillance more than ever before. New and deadly mutant strains of COVID have not only emerged in India, but also in the United Kingdom, Brazil, and South Africa. The mutating virus continues to pose a challenge to scientists and vaccine manufacturers across the world. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
Ashish Lata Ramgobin, the great-granddaughter of Mahatma Gandhi, has been sentenced to 7 years in jail by a court in South Africa. She was found guilty of fraud and forgery in a 6 million rand scandal. Lata Ramgobin used fake invoices and documents to coax a businessman named SR Maharaj into advancing her 6.2 million rand. Mr. Maharaj runs a clothing and footwear business in South Africa, and he often finances other companies on a profit-sharing basis. Lata Ramgobin told Maharaj that she had imported 3 containers of linen from India, but she said they were stuck at the border due to mounting customs and tax issues. She even produced a signed purchase order for the goods and an invoice and delivery note as proof of payment. All these documents were actually forged. Trusting Lata Ramgobin's family credentials, Mr. Maharaj entered into a written contract for the loan. He later found out that the documents were forged and filed a criminal case against her. The court in Durban has refused her leave to appeal both the conviction and the sentencing. Lata Ramgobin is a great-granddaughter of Mahatma Gandhi. She used to run an NGO promoting non-violence. Her mother, Ela Gandhi, is a globally recognised activist. She's received honours from both India and South Africa.
52-year-old Ashish Lata Ramgobin was sentenced to an effective 7 years imprisonment in the Durban Specialised Commercial Crimes Court last week. She was convicted of fraud as well as forgery and uttering to the amount of 6.2 million rand. In August 2015, Ramgobin had met the director of an import company. She told him that she had imported 3 containers of linen for the Netcare Group and was experiencing financial difficulties to pay for the import cost as well as to clear the goods at the harbour. She asked him for a loan of 6.2 million rand. To convince him, she showed him what claimed to be a signed purchase order for the goods. In return for the loan, Ram Gobind promised to pay back the 6.2 million rand as well as a share of the profits of 1.5 million rand. The director of the company agreed and they got into a written agreement. However, he soon discovered that Ram Gobind did not have any purchase order with Netcare.
Ashish Lata Ram Gobind, granddaughter of famous historian Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi, is sentenced for defrauding a businessman. She is the daughter of Asha Gandhi, a noted rights activist who has been internationally recognized for her efforts, including receiving national honors from both India and South Africa. Obviously, the arrest of Ram Gobind comes as a shock to the descendants of Gandhi family, both in South Africa and India. During the 21 years Mahatma Gandhi spent in South Africa, not only did he speak against the apartheid government, but it was also here where he became the man who would lead India to its independence and instigated the world movement of decolonization. This is Kalden Ongmo from Johannesburg, South Africa, for WION World is One.
Now we're going to take a journey to Bhutan and ask, how did the peace-loving Kingdom of Bhutan become the land of the Thunder Dragon? How did the Bhutanese kings become dragon kings? For a remote Himalayan kingdom, this seems like a strange connection, but there is a story behind it, a story of ice and fire.
Traveling around Bhutan, it is impossible to miss the dragon. It's on the national flag, clutching valuable jewels. It's painted across the national carrier, Druk Air. And then you have the kings of Bhutan, the Dragon Kings, or the Druk Gyalpo. How did this peaceful Himalayan kingdom, the last Shangri-La, associate with a mythical fire breather? It is truly a story of ice and fire. A story that stretches across time and geography. It starts with this man, Drogon Tsangpa Gyare, the founder of the Drukpa lineage of Tibetan Buddhism. Legend has it he was building a monastery in western Tibet. This was back in the 12th century. Just as the construction began, a thunderstorm ripped through the skies. A ferocious sound, almost like the roar of a dragon. A thunder dragon. Tsangpa Gyare decided this was an omen. So he named the monastery Druk Ralung. Druk meaning thunder dragon. The disciples here came to be called Drukpa. As the culture seeped into Bhutan, so did the ties with the mythical dragon. Over centuries, the Drukpa lineage came to dominate Bhutan. And the kingdom was rechristened, the land of the Thunder Dragon. Today, the dragon is everywhere, from ceremonial masks to even local cricket clubs. The mythical guardian of this peaceful kingdom. South Asia Bureau, WION World is One.
Indonesia is the world's biggest producer of tin, but with tin deposits getting harder to mine, a new crisis has erupted on the island of Bangka, which is Indonesia's largest hub for mining tin. Our next report gets you all the details.
Tin is in everything, from food packaging to electronics to now green technologies. And Indonesia is the world leader in tin mining, with large chunks of deposits found on the Bangka Island. With tin deposits beginning to dwindle on land, the miners have now turned to the ocean bed. Crudely built wooden pontoons have sprung up on the coast to dredge the seabed for deposits of tin ore. And this has put the miners in direct conflict with the fishermen, who allege their livelihoods have been ruined.
Miners and fishermen here don't get along with each other. We know those miners who are fighting for their lives and we appreciate that. But what they are doing is wrong. That's why we don't feel sorry for them, as they don't admit their wrongdoing. Instead, they're making excuses.
Each offshore mining pontoon is manned by 3 to 4 workers. A thick pipe over 20 meters long is used to suck up sand from the seabed, which is then sifted to trap the glittery tin ore. Besides emitting thick black smoke, the diesel generators also rumble very loudly.
The impact for us from the mining is incredible. You can tell by the shrinking of our catch. We used to get at least 10 kilograms in a day. Now only 2 kilograms. And sometimes we come back with nothing, because the location has been destroyed by an illegal mining site.
On the island, the aftermath of tin mining has left behind a lunar landscape of craters and highly acidic turquoise lakes. Indonesian environmental groups have been campaigning to stop mining at sea.
20 tahun terakhir inilah ya, pertambangan yang tidak memiliki izin ini kan.
It's been 20 years that people have been doing illegal mining activity on land or sea. This has caused conflicts in society, especially with the fishermen. Also, more importantly, on the environmental impact, mining sites along the coast have caused damage to mangroves.
Lingkungan yang ada.
Authorities have sporadically cracked down on illegal mining. Much of the mining on the seabed is done without any official permit. But with lax enforcement of rules, the illegal mining still continues, damaging the environment and ruining the livelihoods of the locals. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
And that's all we have on today's edition of WION Live Broadcast. For more news and global updates, stay tuned to WION World is One.
This is right, Arab.